Hey, are you looking for something to play with somebody else this year? Well, we got you covered with these new and upcoming cooperative games, or co-op games, for 2024. We got 15 or so games to talk about, so let's get started off with number 15. Little Nightmares 3 is upcoming. As of right now, it doesn't have a release date technically, but it looks pretty far along, and it is fully cooperative. You could either play solo with an AI companion, or two people going along across this creepy, gross world. If you played the other Little Nightmares games, you know what to expect, judging from the trailers and stuff with this game, but also, it just is a series that really makes sense for cooperative play, if you ask me. They're just creative, cool, weird, creepy, charming games, and this one looks to be no slouch, but interestingly enough, it's actually being developed by a different developer this time around. It's still published by Bandai Namco, but the developer is Supermassive Games, the people behind the Dark Pictures anthology, the Quarry, Until Dawn, so a very different type of game for them, but also horror, and they absolutely understand the scares, so this makes sense. Like I said, it doesn't have a release date yet for this year, but we're like armchair quarterbacking that we're probably going to see it soon. We hope we do, because Little Nightmares 2 was so awesome, so we really hope that they top it here with this one. Next, over at number 14, we have Outward 2. This is the follow-up to Outworld, a surprise hit, a kind of cult-following RPG. It's essentially like a big explorable world RPG with some survival elements, but also brutal difficulty. There's a lot of emphasis on realism with the previous game, and we expect that here, and it was cooperative, and it is once again going to be a cooperative thing. I actually think the original Outward was so successful because you could play it with other people and kind of uncover the mystery of this game, like figure out the Rubik's Cube of this challenging game together. So hopefully you'll be able to do that and get that same feeling in the second game. It's going to take place 50 years after the events of the previous game, so there might be a lot of new stuff to this world. There were previews for this pretty recently. Some YouTubers and like press outlets got their hands on it, and the sentiment was pretty positive. So we're hoping it gets a full release date soon, and we hear more about it. Next, over at number 13, we have Arc Raiders. This one was announced quite a while ago. They've been cooking on it for some time, and it is going to be a technically free-to-play, third-person PvPvE extraction shooter. Set on a, you're not going to believe this, kind of post-apocalyptic Earth, ravaged by robot aliens. So this game is definitely doing a lot, as you can tell from the description, but the thing that stood out from us from the very beginning is the style here, just the visual style. Well, first, that it's a third-person shooter. We love them. There's not enough third-person shooters out there, in our opinion, but really just the style, the look of the armor, the kind of spaceman-y-esque vibe to the whole thing, just makes it stand out, because there are a lot of free-to-play, cooperative shooter-looter type things, to be totally honest. But Arc Raiders has kind of always looked a little different from the beginning. We know it's probably going to release, or at least go to early access this year. They have been working on it for a long time. People have gotten their hands on it, like alphas and betas and stuff like that, and it does seem like it's shaping up to be pretty cool. Next, over at number 12, we have Macabre. Here's something a little different. This is actually a stealth extraction horror game. This is a smaller project from a smaller studio called WeForge Studio. We don't know too much about them, but just the visuals and some of the concepts alone for this game does sound like it's worth mentioning. It's kind of like you and a bunch of people stuck in infinite timelines, and it's you navigating and kind of looting and gearing up to get through this existential threat. It's in like a harsh winter, in seemingly endless, spooky, creepy woods, and as you explore, you get more scientific equipment at your disposal. As of right now, a lot of it still seems conceptual, but the idea of sneaking around in the woods with your friends while dealing with like existential time rift threats, it just sounds really cool, to be fully honest. So hopefully we see more from Macabre soon. Oh boy, next over at number 11, we have Terminator Survivors. Yes, the Terminator franchise is still going strong, and this time around, they're making a survival game out of it. Terminator Survivors is a game you can play solo or cooperatively with friends, and it's set right after Judgment Day, so it's a pretty cool concept. The world is absolutely ravaged, humans are few, and you have to essentially rebuild, gear up, and start fighting back against the machines. So what better way to do that from a gameplay standpoint than a survival game. The only way you can beat a T100 is to punch a bunch of trees and then craft some. I'm kidding. All jokes aside with how survival games tend to be, I think the Terminator franchise is a good way to do it. Obviously, other sci-fi franchises right now, like Dune, are also doing similar things with Dune Awakening. This one was kind of announced out of nowhere. We'll just have to wait and see where it goes. It's releasing October 24th, 2024. Next, over at number 10, we have John Carpenter's Toxic Commando. Not only does this have John Carpenter's name attached to it, you know, the horror mastermind, there's a lot that comes with that could be potentially cool, but without his name, the game just looks like a cool concept. It's you and your friends riding around on a big truck blasting zombies and monsters. Kind of like a Left 4 Dead, but centered around a vehicle. If that doesn't sound like a good idea, I don't know what is. You're going to be able to upgrade skills and abilities with all these different characters, and the game is going to be focused around gore, grossness, over-the-top action, but also some levity and humor. And that totally works. Like, this just looks like fun B-movie action. It totally makes sense. As of right now, they do have beta signups. We don't know about a release date, but I've seen some websites and some media places speculate that we might at least start to see it start to trickle out by sometime later in 2024. It is being developed by Saber Interactive and published by Focus Entertainment. Saber Interactive, of course, did the World War Z game, which was a good zombie horde shooter that was kind of underrated, so we're hoping they have similar success here with Toxic Commando. And to be frank, we can't wait to see more. Next, over at number 9, we have Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. If you ask me, this type of game is the perfect one to play with a friend. You, as an overpowered space badass, just mowing down hordes of enemies with tons of gore and explosions and just like insanely over-the-top weaponry. Like, this is a recipe for perfect co-op fun. If you have played the first Space Marine game, you probably know the gist, but essentially here it's a third-person shooter against hordes of aliens and enemies. Set in the Warhammer 40k sci-fi universe, there's a lot going on to it, but you can just boil it down to being a badass space marine killing shit. And with a friend, that just seems way better. From what we've seen so far, the visuals here are really impressive. The combat, very kind of straightforward, old-fashioned, but sometimes we just really like that. We don't have to overcomplicate everything. We've been waiting for a long time to a follow-up to Space Marine, and now that it's been announced, we've been waiting a long time for this one. But fortunately, as of right now, it is releasing September 9th, 2024. Next up, at number 8, we have Killer Klowns from Outer Space, the game. Now, I feel like the asymmetric multiplayer type game thing is kind of played out. There's enough of them out there. There's also a lot of them based on horror franchises, but not a lot of them are based off of weird kind of cult-following horror franchises like Killer Klowns from Outer Space. If you know Killer Klowns, you get it. If you don't, I wouldn't even try. But this is being made by Ilphonic, the people that get this type of game and these horror properties. I mean, they did Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, but more importantly, they did Predator Hunting Grounds, which was actually a pretty good, decent spin on the franchise at the very least. They've done more in the past, but what you need to know is that they made a Killer Klowns game. Like, I just can't believe that. So this is releasing June 4th, 2024. And next, over at number 7, we have Mechwarrior 5 Clans. Now, it's been a long-awaited return to classic Mechwarrior, and Mechwarrior 5 seems to be bringing the fun by focusing on a campaign, a structured, traditional Mechwarrior experience. However, according to the developers, it is one that will be able to be played cooperatively, and that is pretty cool. What we have here is some impressive environments, arenas, cutting-edge robot tech, seems like some upgraded weaponry, and also just the visuals are pretty impressive so far from what we've seen. There's still a lot more to be seen, but it is Piranha Games. They have been at the Mechwarrior thing for a while now, so we're looking forward to getting our hands on this. As of right now, it has a release date slated for just 2024. And next at number 6, we have Hyper Light Breaker. From the creators of Hyper Light Drifter comes this really over-the-top, fun-looking action combat game. You're fighting tons of monstrous enemies in this stylized, absolutely gorgeous world in fast-paced, third-person combat. But a lot of this is just how you're getting around the world, traversal, the fun of that speed and agility of your character. But it does seem like you're going to be able to do different character builds, upgrade your gear, and most importantly, play single player or play cooperatively online with friends. This looks like the type of game where that can be absolutely awesome. It seems like they're going all in with co-op play this time, and we're excited to see how it really rolls out. Hyper Light Breaker doesn't have a release date yet, but we're hoping to see more of it this year. Next at number 5, we have Ark 2. The long-awaited follow-up to the original Ark Survival Evolved is coming eventually. I mean, we're cheating a little bit by putting it on this list because we don't know when it is releasing, but we're thinking 2024 is a year where we finally get some real concrete stuff on it. It's a big open sandbox survival game. It's going to be multiplayer. We don't know how exactly they're going to innovate on the genre yet, but we know there's absolutely potential, and considering the first one was such a massive success, you know they probably got the budget at this point to pull anything off. But whatever you're going to be doing in this game, you are going to be doing it with friends, and that's going to be cool to see. Next over at number 4, we have the First Descendent. Now, what at first glance might look like a pretty typical over-the-shoulder looter shooter thing, take a couple minutes, maybe spend a time with one of the trailers, and you realize the vibe is a little different here. The world's a little more abstract, it's beautiful, the character designs and the enemy designs are just a little weirder, and the game is powered by Unreal Engine 5, so it's looking to be pretty gorgeous. You can play solo or co-op, and all of these characters have different abilities that you can take advantage of, and the idea is to combine these abilities to take down enemies. And from what we've seen with early glimpses of the game, the focus is on some pretty gigantic enemies. That's pretty cool, and honestly, we want to see more of that. First Descendant looks like a weird Hideo Kojima mashup of a looter shooter. It's not Hideo Kojima, but just there's something about it that's a little Death Stranding mixed with like high concept sci-fi. I don't know. Either way, as of right now, it is being developed and published by Nexon, and it is slated for summer 2024. Now down at number 3, we have Path of Exile 2. This action RPG is going to be free to play and giving players essentially more of what they loved from the first game. So like you're going to have all the classes from the original game, but apparently you're going to have 6 new classes to mess around with. And that seems to be like what they're really growing out here, the depth of the classes, and we're excited to see how you can take advantage of that. This one is set years after the original Path of Exile, so expect different environments, different enemies, and hopefully just a lot more fun to be had. You're going to be able to do co-op with up to 6 players. No release date for this one yet, but we're definitely expecting and hoping to hear more of it this year. Now down at number 2, we have Content Warning. This is probably one of the more unique games on this list, and it has been taking Steam by storm for a reason. So essentially this is a cooperative game with a horror spin. You're in this goofy world, and the idea is to make videos with your friends, literally try to go viral. So you're running around with cameras, trying essentially to film scary stuff, and you're going into scary areas, and it's very like lo-fi and weird. The graphical style just really works for this type of thing. And essentially you're upgrading your gear and then you're diving down into runs to film the scary stuff. Along with that being like a part of the progression of the game, you're able to actually watch back what you filmed and like have little watch parties with your friends. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining the appeal to this, but it's just got a lot of charm. And if you got a group of friends, it's definitely worth checking out. It's 2 to 4 player co-op. It only released in April, so there's still probably a lot more to come from it, but you should get it on the ground floor and check it out. Now down at number 1, we have Helldivers 2. If we're talking about doing fun, silly stuff with your friends, Helldivers 2, as of right now, is one of the better blueprints. You build out a pretty basic soldier, you pick a loadout, and you dive down onto planets to liberate and fight for freedom. Essentially, murder robots and bugs. It's kind of a community-based game, things change within it, and essentially the player base is fighting back against these hordes. But what it really boils down to is fun, chaotic shooting, tons of awesome tech and ordnance to call in to explode everything, and simple fun shooting mechanics that are just effective, with enemies that overwhelm you in hordes that feel satisfying to kill but are also pretty challenging. If you like mindless run-and-gun third-person shooters of old, of yesteryear, the 360 PS3 era, maybe, Helldivers 2 definitely might be your thing. It's on PS5 and PC, and you should absolutely check it out, because if you ask us, in our humble opinion, it is definitely worth the hype. Those are some co-op games worth playing, but we got some bonus games we couldn't squeeze on the list. The first is Demonsomnia, also Blight Survival. We hope to see more of that this year. Ghost of Tsushima is releasing on PC, and you're going to get the awesome cooperative mode Legends, Men of War 2, Streets of Rogue 2, and Dune Awakening. We're really looking forward to hearing more from that one soon.